All right, guys, as we go into, and depending on when you're watching this, into 2026, there are three main mistakes, three big mistakes that I'm going to be seeing apartment owners. Doesn't matter if you own 4 units, 400 units, and I mean mistakes that will cost not thousands, not tens of thousands, but potentially millions and millions of dollars. And that will be a cost to apartment community owners, whether you're an individual owner, partnership, your syndication. These are the big three that in 2026 are going to cost you money. My name is Darren Garman. I have been involved in billions of dollars of multifamily transactions. I oversee thousands of apartment communities as an owner and asset manager, and am the go-to guy for thousands of multifamily investors, either individual or institutional investors across the U.S. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get into what we need to talk about for 2026. Now, depending on when you watch this, you might be watching it a little before 26, so you can maybe be proactive in, getting some things done, getting some things going, preventing some things if 2026 is a year that you may be thinking about selling your apartment property, or even if you're into 2026, as you watch this video, the information is what I call evergreen, so it continues and it continues, it continues. But I want to mention 2026 first and foremost because up through the last couple of years, 2024, 2025, I've seen an uptick in these mistakes. And there are only 3 of them. I've seen an uptick in these mistakes, and it has cost owners, partnerships, syndication, institutional investors, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in the sale of their apartment properties. They're literally leaving millions of dollars on the closing table. Okay, so what am I talking about? Let's get into it right now. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 big ones, the 3 big mistakes. The 3 big mistakes in 2026. All right, a couple of quick housekeeping items here. Number 1, this is the whiteboard. I'm communicating with you whiteboard. I think it's the most effective way for you to get the message of how important this is. Number 2, my handwriting is not the best. So yeah, maybe I should have went with PowerPoint or something like that, but I think what I'm going to share with you will come across to you much more effectively and will hit home much better with this kind of communication that we're having. Okay, let's get right into it right now. The 3 big mistakes that apartment community owners are going to be making that they should avoid big time when it comes to selling their apartment properties if 2026 is going to be the year. So let's talk about number 1. And that number 1 is who? The question of who. All right? Who. So what does who mean? What who means is who will you have represent you and market your apartment property? Who is it going to be? For most apartment community owners, not all, but for most apartment community owners, it's a real estate agent or a real estate broker. Okay? And so one of the main things you need to then make sure you understand once you've made that decision is one simple word. One simple word, and that word is specialize. Specialize. Okay? Specialize. Specialize. This is huge. This is the biggest of the 3 mistakes that I see happen all of the time. Here's the problem. Well, let me ask you this question. If you need to get braces, are you going to a regular dentist or are you going to an orthodontist? If you have a heart issue, you've got some heart problems, are you going to go see your general practitioner or are you going to see a cardiologist? If you need a knee replacement, which I was lucky enough to have one here not that long ago, if you need a knee replacement, are you going to go to an orthopedic surgeon to do that, or are you going to talk to the chiropractor to do that? Okay? Obviously, the answers that you have for those questions are pretty obvious. But for some reason, when it comes to the world of real estate, a lot of people group real estate agents and brokers all together as if they know everything about every kind of property in every market. So what a lot of people do when they make this mistake is they group the cardiologist with the family practitioner. They group the orthodontist with the dentist, the regular dentist. They group the orthopedic surgeon with the chiropractor and kind of think they're all the same. Guys, they are not all the same. And who you choose to represent you to help you sell your property will literally put millions and millions of more dollars on the table to you at the closing table. Okay? Of course, depending on property size, it could be thousands more, it could be hundreds of thousands of more, but in a lot of cases, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars more that you choose and have somebody that specializes in that area. Why? The answer should be pretty obvious, because they are able to get you more money in the least amount of time because of their identity and their experience. Okay, so if you look at me, for example, over $1 billion in multifamily transactions, we're really good at selling multifamily property. Okay, so a lot of people will call us to sell their property because they know that. They're buying that experience, they're buying that speed, they're buying that comfort in knowing at the closing table they're going to be getting as much money in as short of a period of time as they possibly can. Okay? Now, I know all of this sounds obvious, but all of the time I see it. Just the other day, a smaller property comes on the market here in my marketplace, 8-unit property. And I see it's being marketed by a real estate agent that mainly has open houses on Sundays, sells single-family homes during the week, and is showing houses on Friday and Saturdays. Okay? All right, fine. However, that property is underpriced a minimum of $25,000. I almost lost it. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Why are they selling it so cheap? Is there something wrong with it? Is there a problem? Is there an issue? No. They've got somebody working on it that doesn't have the track record, that doesn't have the experience in cutting through all of that and getting them the most amount of money for their apartment property in the least period of time. So let me ask you a question. Do you think that the real estate agent that has open houses on Sunday and is selling the 3-bedroom ranches during the week and selling some condos over here on the weekends, do you think they have real live relationships and connections with other apartment community owners in the market? No. Do you think that they have connections and relationships with the apartment community lenders in the market? No. And I could go on and on, because all of those networks that folks that specialize in apartment communities that sell them, they tap those networks. And once they tap those networks, that equals this, guys. A lot more money coming to you. Guys, don't make this mistake. Don't make this mistake. Don't just think that all real estate agents, real estate brokers are the same. It will cost you time, a lot, effort, a lot, frustration, worry, and most of all, money. Money. Okay, so that's mistake number one going into 2026. You cannot choose a real estate agent or broker that has zero or hardly any track record selling multifamily properties. If you do, it's going to cost you. Again, the biggest cost is going to be money. All right, so let's segue into something that's related to this. It's almost the most important thing, but it's the second most important mistake that I see apartment owners making. And it's number 2, and it's ownership. All right, ownership. Okay, so what do I mean by ownership? What does that mean? Well, let me ask you a question. When it comes to selling your apartment property, do you think someone would be much more effective, much more convincing, much more able to get you more money, and much more able to talk in the kind of way if they own an apartment property versus just selling an apartment property? Okay, who is more bought in to an apartment property and selling it, do you think? Is it Someone that's just in the business of selling property? Or is it someone that not only sells property, but also owns property too? Okay? At a granular level, who has more experience, better able to have the kind of real conversations with buyers and potential buyers for apartment properties, able to look at properties and show them things and talk about things that they can do to make the property more valuable, realistically, showing them things that they can take into account when they take over that they can improve or make better, thereby improving their offer that they're going to make on the property. And I could go on, guys. The answer again is obvious, isn't it? If you're choosing somebody to specialize in selling your apartment properties, we've already said it's got to be a specialist, someone that's what they do. They got experience doing that. Long track record. Second thing right underneath that, they should have ownership in property too. Think about it. One of the reasons why we have become so effective in selling apartment properties year after year and being so good at what we do is we not only sell the apartment properties, we own them too. So think of the kind of conversations we're having with potential buyers of, let's say, your apartment when we own the apartments too versus someone that's, just kind of selling apartments. Yeah, they may specialize in it. They may have market knowledge in what's going on, and we talk about how important that is, and identify the big players in the market. But how much better are the conversations that we're having as owners with potential buyers in the market versus people that are just salespeople? What do you think? Again, the difference is huge. What happens is, number one, it shortens the time frame of the sale. Shortens the time frame. When you have somebody representing you that also owns apartment properties too, it shortens the time frame. Why? Because of the ability to have the crucial conversations that produce offers and high offers and offers that you're going to accept and close on quickly much, much faster. Because people that own apartment communities are able to have those crucial conversations faster, better, more efficiently. And then what that means is faster sales, more money, and of course, a lot of convenience on the part of the sellers. Okay, so it shortens it. Okay, number two, the other thing it does, and I mentioned this before, is it gets the sellers of apartment properties more money. Again, it comes down to those crucial conversations. I can't tell you how many times I have met buyers at properties. And guys, it doesn't matter if it's 4 units or 400 units, and I'm literally coaching them through the process of owning it. Here's what you do first when you take this property over. Here's what you do second. Here's what you do third. And just think about what the property will look like, how it will act, how it will cash flow, what kind of value it will have after you do these 4 or 5 things that I mentioned that you do. Okay? How many other brokers, agents are able to do that? Hardly any. Okay, so how much more effective am I in having those conversations, coaching the buyers through, again, building value through those conversations and showing them the kind of big picture this property can realistically have once they take over? How can I do that? How can guys like me do that? We own real estate. Specifically, we own apartment properties. Okay, so that's the second thing. The third thing is we know. We know. What does that mean? We know everything that an apartment property owner thinks about, talks about, what keeps them up at night worrying about, what they're worried about when it comes to selling the property, what their goals are, and something. We know. How do we know? Because we own. We know exactly what you're thinking. Again, and it doesn't matter if you're individual investor, doesn't matter if you're institutional, if you're private fund, we know what you're thinking about. We know what worries you. We know what's on your mind. Okay? Through the whole process. And guys, this isn't just when it comes to selling it and getting a contract signed. What happens after a contract gets signed? A hell of a lot more work now has to be done, right? There's due diligence, there's keeping the deal together, there's communication, etc., etc. And I'm telling you, when you have someone that owns the real estate, owns the apartments, in addition to specializing in selling it, it's not only such a better experience for the owner, more profitable, less hassle, less energy, and at the end of the day, more what? More money. More money. Okay, so those were the two big ones that I were talking about. Mistakes that apartment owners will make that they shouldn't make as we go into 2026 and are into 2026. But I told you there was three. I'm going to go to the third one. Okay? And the third one is simply this. Act like. Act like. Okay, again, my handwriting is not that great, but act like. Okay, well, what does act like mean, Darren? What in the world are you talking about? When you are a seller, and this is advice from being in the trenches and over $1 billion of apartment community purchases, transactions, okay, you never really want to act like you really need to sell the property. Okay? You want to act like you don't care. You want to act like you don't care. Okay, now I need to qualify this. This is very important. Does this mean that you act like a jerk? No. Does this mean that you act like an ass? No. Does this mean that when we're communicating, you decide, I don't really care, I'm not going to respond to that email for 3 days? No. Does that mean, I got a voicemail, I'm not going to respond to them, I really don't? No. It doesn't mean that at all. Okay, you remain consistent as being a person, company, corporation, whatever that wants to sell, of course. But you should never be giving any kind of indication that you really, really, really want to sell. Even if that's the case. Even if that's the case. Because what a lot of real astute buyers can pick up on, I call it the smell. The smell. They can smell it when you really want to sell it. I'll say it again. They can smell it when you really want to sell it. Okay? I have seen hundreds of transactions where the sellers, it's like you're at the poker table, and they're given the tell. And all of a sudden the buyers know, and pretty soon there's some concessions that, if they weren't really acting like that, having that kind of language, those kinds of tones in their voice, those kinds of body language, they wouldn't have to even be dealing with concessions. Okay, and there's hundreds of different kinds of concessions. I'll just leave it at that. Those concessions come up in a big way. Why? Because they can smell it. Okay, so what do you do? How do you do it? Number one, the obvious answer is just act like you don't care if you sell it. Okay, you always have to have the air of, well, if we don't sell it to you, we'll just sell it to somebody else. Oh, well, if we don't sell it to you, I got like 5 other people, they've already contacted me, we'll just talk to them. So if you don't really want to kind of play ball with me, okay, we'll just move on. Again, are we being a jerk? No. Are we ignoring people? No. Are we not answering emails, texts, voicemails? Are we not doing and playing our part like we should do in a responsible way? Of course not. But we act like we don't care if we sell the property. Okay? Easier said than done. Because you may be saying, well, Darren, that's easy. I'll just act. When you're in the middle of it, when you're really negotiating some points, some pretty important points, especially after the negotiation, when the DD happens, and the DD is the due diligence, a lot of times after the due diligence, what will happen? What will come up? Well, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we noticed X, Y, Z, and we really need to have that taken care of, and so at closing we want a credit. At closing we want to reduce the price. It's there, we want a concession. Okay, due to the due diligence. A big reason why that comes up is early in the process, you were acting like you really wanted to sell it. When you act like you don't really want to sell it, not all the time, but many times, some of those things that will come up in due diligence, they'll be like, well, we'll handle it. Well, we'll take care of it. Let me give you like a quick story. So, a 100-unit apartment community that I'm involved in owning and managing. We're looking at selling the property, and I actually met the buyers at the property, had a long conversation with them there with this in mind. Okay, and we had a couple of buildings that hadn't had the exterior. We put new exteriors on all the buildings with the exception of 2. And where there's 2 that are left over. And of course, one of these guys infers to me, there's 2 left over. And I said, yeah, there's 2 left over. You'll be able to take care of that with no problem. Okay. So I didn't say, yeah, there's 2 left over. Yeah, we were hoping to get to that. I didn't say, yeah, there's 2 left over, but if you want, maybe we can work something. No, yeah, there's 2 there. You'll be able to take care of that with no problem once you take over. See, again, I'm acting like I don't care. I don't care about it. I'm not being a jerk, but I don't care. You have to act the same way. And that's even if you're like live involved in it, whether you got an attorney working with you and negotiating things, whether you've got an agent or a broker negotiating things for you, you got to act like you don't care. When you do, it will put thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars more in the bank for you and will come to you at the closing table as a result. Okay? All right. Let's go over the top 3 again real quick here. Let's come full circle. Number 1, remember, the 3 big mistakes that apartment owners are going to make in 2026, and these are the ones that you're going to want to avoid. I've seen them a lot. I want to make sure you don't make these mistakes. Okay, number 1 is who? You got to be working with a broker or an agent that specifically specializes in apartments. All agents aren't the same. You don't want to use Sally Open House. Okay, we like Sally Open House, but we don't use her when it comes to selling our apartment communities. That's number 1. Number 2, work with not only someone that specializes in apartment communities and selling them, but someone that owns them. Those critical conversations that happen, that coaching that happens by someone that owns apartment properties is huge because it shortens the time frame, gets you more money, and we know you. We know what you're going through. We know what you worry about. So the conversations we can have much different level, much bigger, and much better as a result. And then there's number 3, act like you don't care. Again, we're not being a jerk. We're not avoiding. We're in the process. We're working on selling the property, but we always have an air of we don't care. Remember, if you're motivated to sell, they can smell it. They can smell it. Okay. If you really want to sell it, what did I say? They can smell it. Okay. So make sure you don't do that. You want to act like you don't care. Guys, these 3 things, many of them, 1, 2, heck, maybe all 3 might have seemed, well, I mean, come on, Darren, those are kind of obvious things, but you'd be surprised whether you own a 12 unit or whether you own 1,200 units, how many times when you're in the middle of the action, you're in the middle of it all, it's all going on around you. Okay, that I'll just call it, I'll call it like the fog of war when it comes to, multifamily transactions. It's easy to forget these things and find yourself not maximizing all of the hard work you've put into that apartment property when the time comes for you to get your biggest cash flow from that property. Okay, comments, questions, you want to dig into this deeper with us, all of my contact information is here. Happy to answer your questions, happy to answer your comments, and provide any other follow-up information that could help you maximize the sales price of your property in 2026. All right, well, take care. We'll see you. All right, bye-bye.